The Hawk, the Hound, and the Butterfly. Athena, Chapter 2, Part 2. Voices drifted out from inside the building. Athena turned her head, pushing her ear closer to the window, but keeping an eye on her surroundings. Several distinct voices came from inside. "Quadrant 3, sir," a husky voice said. "Contained for now." "Quadrant 4 has been taken care of too, sir," a shaky, younger voice said. "Excellent. Continue on to the next phase." Athena froze at the sound of the third voice. She'd heard it before. It was a voice that made her skin crawl, because she knew exactly who it belonged to. But she couldn't believe it was actually him. He wasn't supposed to be anywhere near here. Ignoring the first rule she'd learnt at the academy, always watch your back, Athena turned, and slowly she rose towards the window and peeked inside the room. A group of Tekken officers gathered around a table. Their polished dark blue armor looked like it hadn't even seen a second of combat. She wondered if its strength had even been tested, or could she easily pierce it with the dagger in her boot? Athena loathed those who commanded from afar, like they were playing a game of chess, whilst young men in the field lost their lives because of a bad move men in shiny armor made. They were not like her own father, who had been glorious on the battlefield, something she hoped to one day emulate. He could take on all of these men at the same time and come out victorious, despite being at least 10 years older than the oldest of them. The officers had a spiked mace etched into the shoulder of their armor. Beneath it were lines, representing their rank. 2 of them had 5 thick lines, indicating the highest level of rank in the Tekken army. Another had 3 lines, and the one Athena had guessed to be the younger of the group only had 2 lines, a rank he most likely obtained through knowing the right people, and not necessarily having the ability, much like the rest of them. One of the men stepped back from the table. Athena bit down on her lip. Her eyes narrowed in on him, standing hunched over the table, his long nose, deep inset grey eyes, and with that damn smirk he always had on his face. Athena had to restrain herself from jumping through the window, taking her dagger and drawing it across his throat. He was Dagar, the warlord who had caused so much bloodshed across not only Arcadia, but all of the western realms of Pangaea. His rise to power came after the Tekken Emperor had died from a mysterious case of food poisoning. Dagar soon took up arms and led troops to conquer the realms of Vanaheim and Medina, but when they came to Arcadia, they hadn't expected the powerful forces of the Arcadian army. For several years now, the 2 powers had been at war, both gaining and losing territory. Athena had been through it all, seeing far too much of it than anyone deserved, but she had to do it. It was her duty. Recently, Athena's reconnaissance teams discovered that Dagar had employed a man to invent and produce weapons for him. Those weapons were turning out to be very effective when used in the right hands. The only information Athena had gotten so far about Dagar's inventor was that he called himself the Creator. No one knew where he'd come from, and descriptions of his appearance seemed to change with each scout. Athena didn't like not knowing her enemies. She believed to know your enemy was to know their weaknesses. Knowing her enemies so well was one of the reasons Athena was so successful in battle. If she could find out who this Creator was and what he wanted, perhaps she could sway him to join the Arcadian side and weaken Dagar in the process. "Let's move on. Aetius, what have you got for me?" Dagar said. The man named Aetius, who Athena recognized from his bright red ears and bulbous nose, laid out a scroll of paper on the table in front of the men. "We've collected several more specimens. As you can see, we've still got some to go," said Aetius. Sir?" said the younger man Athena didn't recognize. "I'm not sure this one is wise to—" "Are you questioning my plans, Fabius?" No, sir, I wouldn't—" "Because it's perfectly fine if you do." "Well, sir, I was just thinking—" "Ah, see, there is where you've gone wrong, sir. You're new here, Fabius, but your father was dear to me, so I'm going to educate you. Don't think. You're not here to think. You're here to listen and to do. And you will listen to my plans, and you will do what my plans require. Dagar's white teeth glinted through a snarl. Do you understand? Fabius nodded his head. My apologies, sir. Good. Now back to business. When this lot is sent through, a crunching of rocks caught Athena's attention. She ran to the corner of the building and pulled out the dagger from her boot. Holding it up to the corner, she twisted it slightly. In the reflection of the blade, the Tekkan soldier she'd been following had fallen onto his knees, panting. The Tekkan scrambled to his feet. His injured foot dragged behind him. Athena pressed her back up against the wall and clutched the dagger against her chest. The sound of crunching rocks grew closer. The soldier came around the corner. With one quick movement, Athena put her hand over his mouth and sliced his throat open with the dagger. He made a faint gurgling sound as his body went limp. The body was a lot lighter now that Athena had stripped it of its armor. It seemed as though he wouldn't be needing it any longer, so Athena made good use of it. Her broad shoulders filled out the chainmail more snug than its previous owner had. He was only cannon fodder, so the armor was not made for him, but made for the masses. The short Tekkan sword was barely bigger than the dagger in her boot, but Athena needed it to pull off her look. The Tekkan's helm, however, made her think twice. It was ridiculous. A plume of horsehair dyed Tekkan blue ran from the front all the way across the head, down to the back of the helm. Athena would never wear something so ostentatious, but that's what Dagar was. Athena sighed. Her fingers swiftly tied her hair into a bun and slid the garish-looking helm over her head. There was one other thing that would surely blow her cover. Even in these parts, they would know of the winged princess. Athena tore a strip off the bottom of the Tekkan soldier's undershirt. Blood still seeped from the wound on her head, so Athena tilted the helm up and rubbed the strip over her wound. With the now bloodied bandage, Athena wrapped it around her arm and all the way up her shoulder. A likely wound from a blade that wouldn't be looked at twice. Easy enough to fool Tekkan guards. With her chest puffed out and head raised high, Athena marched up to the entrance of the building. The plumage on her newly acquired helm shed behind her. Two guards were leaning back against the building. Once they saw Athena, they both stood up straight and adjusted their weapons at their side. Hold up. Identify yourself, soldier, the guard on the right said. He spoke with a drawl as if he'd never had a proper education. Probably why he was out in the middle of nowhere, guarding a building during a war, instead of inside planning for it. The man barely came up to Athena's shoulders, and had a stocky build that reflected his hours of leaning against a building, having to defend it from no more than a whistling bird. The one on the left didn't appear any more of a threat. Soft face with not even so much as a freckle to blemish it. His eyes flashed at the other one, looking for a cue as to hold himself. Excuse me, Athena said, looking down the bridge of her nose at them. You want me to identify myself? The stocky guard scrunched his nose and pursed his lips. The younger guard nodded in agreement, but couldn't even find the courage to look Athena in the eye. Yes, soldier? Identify yourself, the stocky guard repeated. Athena huffed. Surely you recognize your superiors when you see them. The stocky guard turned to the younger guard. His eyes widened and bottom lip trembled, offering no assistance. Athena forced her lips to stop curling into a smile. She didn't think it was going to be this easy. Oh, I suppose I do look a bit strange. Deceiving the enemy, you see. Let them think you are no more than a foot soldier. Then surprise them when you cut off their heads. Athena made a swift slicing motion with her finger across her throat. The younger guard's eyes widened. A realization hit the stocky guard. Ah, of course, sir. Forgive us, please, he said. Never mind. I guess my garb was better than I thought. Now, let me through. Athena started towards the door, but the stocky guard stepped forward, raising his crossbow. You seem to have taken a misstep. Athena's tone changed. She now sounded and looked like a vicious thunderstorm rolling in over the hills. Pray that it be the only mistake you make today, or it will be your last. Athena tapped her hand on the sword sheathed at her side. She pushed herself forward, closing the gap between her and the guard. He stepped back, trying to melt into the side of the building, hands shaking as they clung to the crossbow. The younger guard's knees buckled and he hunched down, trying to make himself as small as a mouse. Yes, 'twas a mistake." The stocky guard stepped aside, bowing his head and pounding the clenched fist of his right hand across his chest on his left shoulder. It was the Tekken salute Athena had learnt during one of her first recons out of the academy. The stocky guard looked up at the younger one. "What are you doing? Move it, Wart." The Wart jumped, making his weapons jangle at his hip. He shuffled back and repeated the salute. Athena nodded and saluted them back. It was awkward using her right hand to salute when she was naturally left-handed. Athena stepped forward and pushed through the doors. Inside, Athena found herself in an eerie, sterile hallway that had the atmosphere of a dungeon, not the kind of place you would want to go to be treated for your wounds. It stretched into the darkness, the only light flickering in through the spinning chimneys Athena had seen outside on the roof. It was cool and quiet, Athena's own breath echoing down the hall. Athena stalked on ahead, her chainmail clanking with each step. Every few meters, a doorway would appear on either side of the hallway, always shut and always locked. What did the Tekkens have to hide? An echo vibrated down the hallway. Athena paused, her breath steadily going in and out. She looked over her shoulder to make sure no one was sneaking up on her, but the hallway was empty. Athena came to an intersection with passages that branched off to the left and right, each with identical doors and more darkness. But something told her to keep pushing on forward, so she did. A pulsating blue light peeked through an open door ahead. Athena cursed the armor she'd acquired from the Tekken soldier as she clinked towards it. No Tekken had sprung out to attack, so Athena peered through the open doorway. There was not a soul in sight, not even a whisper of a hidden guard. Athena crept in. Shelves lined either side of the room from ceiling to floor. The darkness made it difficult to see how far back the room went. Sitting on the shelves, spaced out evenly, were silver metal balls, about the size of a melon. A vacant spot on the shelf, where it seemed one used to sit on a short cylindrical base, was the source of the blue light. It throbbed like a beating heart, then stopped. The blue light grew brighter, and then changed to red. The red light started pulsating again. Athena reached out and ran her fingers over the sphere beside the vacant spot. It was cold and smoother than any metal she'd ever seen. She lifted it from the shelf and found it a lot heavier than it appeared. The thought crossed her mind to take one back to Arcus to show the king, but suspicion might arouse if someone found it on her. Would she take such a risk? Athena left the room and continued on. Athena found herself at the end of the hallway. To the left, a passage ran into darkness, with more doors on either side, and to the right, an identical passage with just as many doors. Athena knew where she wanted to go, she just wasn't entirely sure she knew how to get there. The room Dagar was in was near the right corner of the building, towards the back. With how long she'd been walking the hallway for, she had to be at the back by now, so without any better ideas, Athena went right. The passage was just as quiet and just as dark as the main hallway. Athena still clinked and clanked with every step, but that wasn't what was beginning to bother her. What were the guards outside guarding, if there were no more than a handful of people and rooms full of metal balls? It certainly wasn't a hospital, like the sign outside said. Athena was right about that, but what was this place? The passage led Athena around a corner, and it ended abruptly at a door. Behind it, Athena could hear muffled voices. A wave of excitement washed over her. She took off the awful peacock helm and pressed her ear up against the wooden door. Dagar's distinct voice was only stifled words. His voice stopped. There was shuffling behind the door. Athena shoved her helm back on just as the door creaked open. "Soldier." Aetius stood in the doorway, his hand still grasping the doorknob. Athena bowed her head and pounded the clenched fist of her left hand against her opposite shoulder. "Sir," Athena said in a deep tone, "I have news from the field." "Well, go on," Aetius said, shaking his head. "We were unsuccessful at Cardinal this morning." "Unsuccessful because your troops were nothing more than drones with weapons in their hands." Aetius took a slow breath, hissing through his teeth as he exhaled. His bulbous nose turned the same bright red color as the tomatoes Athena had eaten for breakfast. He eyed Athena carefully. "That is unfortunate. Thank you for bringing the news." Athena nodded. Aetius looked back in the room. "Will we head back to camp now, my lord?" "Indeed, we've much to celebrate," said Dagar. Why they would celebrate after such a loss, Athena didn't understand. Aetius looked back at Athena. He motioned with his hand for her to move. Athena stepped aside, her back pressing up against the wall. Aetius shook his head and headed down the hallway. Athena kept her head down, and her fist clenched against her shoulder. Through the slits in her helm, Athena saw the feet of 2 more men follow Aetius. A breeze from the soldiers passing by caused the material covering Athena's arm to flap. The next soldier swooped past, Fabius, eager to catch up to his superiors. The bandage on Athena's arm began to unravel. Tiny feathers poked out from under it. Athena casually brushed over it with her other hand, tucking the material around her finger and back into itself. As she did, Dagar passed by. He didn't stop, didn't even seem to notice the presence of another. Athena's eyes drifted upwards. He kept walking down the hallway behind the other men. As Dagar turned the corner, his eyes met briefly with Athena's. Athena averted her gaze back at the floor. She held her breath for a few seconds. But Dagar didn't stop, and he didn't come back. Athena exhaled. She slipped inside the room and shut the door behind her. It was definitely not a hospital ward. Maps and scrolls were laid out all over the table that sat in the middle of the room. A greedy smile passed over Athena's face. Everything she needed to defeat Dagar could be in this room. She wrenched the helm off and tossed it on the table and began flipping through the pages. Maps of Medina painted blue, even extending into Arcadia. The maps of Arcadia were rough at best. A parchment with a list of names and locations stopped Athena from her search. Some of the names had been crossed off, the ink still damp enough to smudge. Reading down the list, the names seemed familiar. Name, Sir Solon Cad. Location, Mango Hills. Name, G. Starlight. Location, Kettlerick. Name, Carter Gray. Location, Tripolis. Name, Millie Cotton. Location, Scarleton. All those names were crossed off. Where had Athena heard those names? She scanned further down the list. Name, Princess Artemis of Arcadia. Location, Arcus. Athena looked closer at the parchment. The name still read the same. What was that name doing on the list? And why had it been crossed out? An anger boiled deep inside of Athena. A commotion came from beyond the door. It seemed it was time for Athena to move on. Athena slid a bookshelf across the door. It would only hold them for a short while, but it would be long enough for Athena to make her escape. She rolled up the parchment with the list and tucked it into her belt. The window on the far side of the room had led her here. It was now going to lead her away. Athena leapt over the desk and kicked the window, opening it fully. She leapt through it and barely hit the ground before her feet propelled her into the forest. And he didn't come back. Athena exhaled. She slipped inside the room and shut the door behind her. It was definitely not a hospital ward. Maps and scrolls were laid out all over the table that sat in the middle of the room. A greedy smile passed over Athena's face. Everything she needed to defeat Dagar could be in this room. She wrenched the helm off and tossed it on the table and began flipping through the pages. Maps of Medina painted blue, even extending into Arcadia. The maps of Arcadia were rough at best. A parchment with a list of names and locations stopped Athena from her search. Some of the names had been crossed off, the ink still damp enough to smudge. Reading down the list, the names seemed familiar. Name, Sir Solon Cad. Location, Mango Hills. Name, G. Starlight. Location, Kettlerick. Name, Carter Gray. Location, Tripolis. Name, Millie Cotton. Location, Scarleton. All those names were crossed off. Where had Athena heard those names? She scanned further down the list. Name, Princess Artemis of Arcadia. Location, Arcus. Athena looked closer at the parchment. The name still read the same. What was that name doing on the list? And why had it been crossed out? An anger boiled deep inside of Athena. A commotion came from beyond the door. It seemed it was time for Athena to move on. Athena slid a bookshelf across the door. It would only hold them for a short while, but it would be long enough for Athena to make her escape. She rolled up the parchment with the list and tucked it into her belt. The window on the far side of the room had led her here. It was now going to lead her away. Athena leapt over the desk and kicked the window, opening it fully. She leapt through it and barely hit the ground before her feet propelled her into the forest.